Bonjour. Today's lesson is going to be our first really grammatical lesson. We're going to learn some grammar today. We're going to talk about the verb être, and this verb means to be. So before we start, we have just a few questions to consider. Number one, what is a subject pronoun? You should be able to answer this from our last video. So what's a subject pronoun? What's a verb? You might be able to answer this one on your own. What is a verb infinitive? And what does it mean to conjugate a verb? So we're going to have a few definitions. You don't necessarily have to write the whole thing down. As long as you can write down the gist and understand what the word is, then that's okay. So the subject is the person, place, or thing that is being talked about. In French, the subject pronouns are je, tu, il, elle, nous, vous, il, and elle. So here's an example in English of what a subject is. The girl is very nice. She is also an excellent piano player. Okay, so here the girl is the person that is being talked about. Okay, and it's repeated with she. Let's look at the verb. The verb links the subject with the rest of the sentence. A sentence is incomplete without a verb. It is often the action word, but some verbs are more passive. So let's take a look at a couple of examples in English. The first example is he runs a mile every day. This verb is definitely more of an action word, run, okay? But verbs can also be more passive, like in the second sentence. He is very tall, okay? This word, it usually comes right after our subject, is the verb, and it links the subject with the rest of the sentence. A verb infinitive. A verb infinitive is a verb in its most basic form. Okay. In English, examples of verb infinitives start with to run, to jump, to be, to have. Verb infinitives, though, are only one word, and you'll see, well, you already saw, like in the beginning, the very first slide, we have être. This is a verb infinitive in French. It's just one word, and we'll see how it changes. So our next definition, and I believe our last definition, is conjugate. To conjugate a verb means to change it to match with the subject. So changing a verb to match the subject. So a little bit further in English, we know to say I am, you are, he is, we are, they are. This is the conjugation of the verb to be. Instead of saying I to be, we say I am. We conjugate to be to match the subject I am. Verbs in French also change to match the subject. So we're going to see how they do that in French. So here we have a French verb chart, and we can see all the conjugations of the verb to be être. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about this, but first let's start with what are the conjugations of être. So in order to say I am, you say je suis. Je suis. In order to say you are, you say tu es. Tu es. To say he is, il est, and it's the same for she, elle est, elle est. We are is nous sommes, nous sommes. You all are, or you formally are, vous êtes, vous êtes. And listen, because there is a liaison, so you have the S sound going into the sound of the E. Vous êtes. Okay? And then the plurals, they are, ils sont, or elles sont. Okay? Now, this verb chart is laid out in a very specific manner. In the first column, okay, je, tu, il, and elle, these describe people who are just one person. I, you, he, she. We're just talking about one person here. So you can call this column the singular column. If you look at the column on the right, we have nous, vous, il, and elle. These subject pronouns and verbs all describe people who are more than one. Nous includes both myself and more people. Vous typically means you're speaking to more than one you, and il and elle is they. So this column here are all plural. This one here is all singular. Now, if we look across, we can break down this verb chart even further. Je and nous are both in the first person. First person means that you're talking about yourself. Je, I, nous, you're also talking about yourself because in we, you're included in that. We are going to the store, me and my friends, okay? You're included in that. So this is all first person. If you go down to the next line, tu and vous are talking about you. That's second person. So this is second person. And il and elle, that's talking about other people. So that is third person. So we have first person, second person, third person. Going down the columns, we have singular and plural. Okay, that might help you remember what these subject pronouns are too. So let's see these verbs at work. Here we have a sentence, tu es d'où? Tu es d'où? And that sentence means where are you from? And you can see the verb être, it's been conjugated with tu, just like from our verb chart. Tu es d'où? Where are you from? Okay, you would respond with je suis, look back to our verb chart, je suis de Newburgh. I'm from Newburgh, okay? Or I am from Portland, je suis de Portland. We can also ask, vous êtes d'où? And that also means where are you from? It's either going to be a question directed at many people or a question directed at one person, but who you would speak to formally. Okay, so if you're responding for a group and yourself, you're going to respond with nous, we. So, nous sommes de Portland. Nous sommes, we are. Nous sommes de Portland. We are from Portland. Okay, but you could respond with je suis de Seattle. I am from Seattle if vous is referring to a person formally. Okay, so we can ask the question, elle est d'où? Where is she from? Elle est de Boston. She's from Boston, and you can see in our verb chart right here. Elle est. Elle est. And if we want to know where they're from, ils sont d'où? Ils sont d'où? Where are they from? Ils sont. Ils sont d'Annapolis. They are from Annapolis. Okay, and here I wanted to use a city name that started with a vowel because if it starts with a vowel, the D, E, like we saw in de Newburgh, de Portland, is going to change to D apostrophe like we have in do, okay? So, ils sont d'Annapolis, and that is because this starts with a vowel. We don't want the weird sound de Annapolis. Okay, it creates what's called a glottal stop, and the French don't like that sound, where it's two vowel sounds right next to each other. So they remove that E, okay, and they just add an apostrophe. Ils sont d'Annapolis. So hopefully now you can be able to answer these questions that we had at the beginning. So what is a subject pronoun? What is a verb? What is a verb infinitive? And what does it mean to conjugate a verb? This last question is definitely the most important, but the first three you also need to know the answers to. Okay, that's where we're going to end things today, so I'm going to wish you bonne chance, and I will see you next time.